Welcome back, Sebastian here. Time for my review of qualifying for the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix. So it's been a pretty interesting weekend. A lot of surprises in pre-practice sessions. A bit of drama with Red Bull's rear wing not having a rear wing that they thought would be low downforce enough. Similar situation in Monza, and then of course you had the big surprise in pre-practice with the two Mercedes doing very very well. So there was a lot of debate about whether that form in practice would continue into qualifying. So gaps between cars at the start, it was basically 1-2, 1-2. So for example, McLaren's were basically first and second, Mercedes third and fourth after the first runs at the start of Q1. Drivers were able to do multiple push laps on a set of soft tires, generally because the tire drag on the Vegas street circuit is so low. 9 minutes left in the session. Ferrari still hadn't set a time yet. This was actually a really strange strategy that Ferrari were doing. They were for both Q1 and Q2. They left it quite late, doing their first runs in basically doing their first runs in each session and then doing push laps on top of that. Haas and Stroll also no time left. With 6 minutes left to go in the session, Ocon, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, and Stroll were the drivers in the bottom five, but Stroll had not set a time yet. 3 minutes left to go in the session. Bottas, Colapinto, Perez, Lawson, and Stroll were in the bottom five with still no time from Stroll. I wonder if they were trying to deal with mechanical gremlins that knocked him out of FP3 a bit early, but otherwise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to only do one run in Q1 and to leave that run so late in the session. Perez improved on his final run. He goes up to 12th, while George Russell was fastest with a 1:33.186. And as drivers basically improved their times, Perez was knocked out in Q1. Bit of a surprise given that Red Bull kind of fixed their pace, and they generally, I thought, were much better in qualifying today than they looked basically in FP2 yesterday, for example. Albon was also out as well with a deleted time. Russell set the fastest lap with that 1:33.186, like I said before, and Lewis Hamilton was second, Verstappen third. So a bit of a pretty straightforward session with Mercedes looking very, very fast at the start of qualifying. Other notable just kind of surprises from that Q1 session. Zhou got himself out of Q1, so that was definitely a bit of a surprise. And again, the Aston Martins, not good for them in qualifying. They were knocked out alongside Perez and Albon and Bottas as well. Bottas taking a 5-place grid penalty for some kind of power unit part change. So qualifying didn't really have wasn't really a big deal for him today. But yeah, really surprised by the really poor pace by the Aston Martins, down in 17th and in 20th. Definitely not ideal for them. So then we move into Q2. And in Q2, let's see, what do I have for my notes? Let's see, Q2, some drivers on new tires to start, so it was a mix of new tires and old tires for the start of the session. Hamilton sets the early benchmark with a 1:33.136. With 9 minutes left in the session, Ocon, Zhou, Lawson, and the two Ferraris were in the bottom five. Similar to what I said about Q1, Ferraris hadn't set a time yet, so they were leaving it very, very late, which, it did work out for them. But in the case where, for example, there's a late red flag during their first run, that could leave them in a pretty precarious situation where they're forced to basically have one lap right at the end of the session to get into the following session. But, Ferrari's gamble, I think, worked out today. Ferrari doing extra warm-up laps, that's something I mentioned as well. Again, that's something that there was big concerns about with Ferrari, given that they've generally been a little bit slower on tire warm-up, which again is the opposite of the problems that they had last year. So I do think it hurt them a little bit in qualifying, but to be fair, I think it'll put them in a better position for the race tomorrow. Mercedes one lap pace looks really, really genuine, again replicating the pace that they had in Q1. Ferraris go third and sixth, put Gasly and Colapinto in the bottom five. Zhou goes up to 11, so pretty good job from him. And then we have a big crash right at the end of the session as Colapinto basically clips the inside of the penultimate corner of the track, and then he goes flying into the opposite wall, and his day is over. So another big repair job by the Williams mechanics. Definitely not what they need right now after their double, or was it double or even triple repair job for the Brazilian Grand Prix last time out. So yeah, not ideal for Colapinto. He's had quite a few crashes in his short time in F1 so far, and I do think, at this point in the season, where Williams are probably going to be ninth in the championship, regardless of what they do, with Alpine's big results the last time out in Brazil, and with the fact that they just had so many big crashes recently. He really probably should have, I think, left a little bit more pace on the table, just kind of get it through the session. Even if he's knocked out in Q2, it's not really a big deal. You obviously, just with how few parts and with how many repair jobs Williams have had to do recently. Lawson also abandoned his lap, so he, again, not able. So both rookies, kind of two rookie drivers who hadn't done this track yet before, not having great sessions in qualifying today. So looking at your order from the end of Q2, Hamilton State was first, Sainz second, Russell third, Gasly fourth, and Leclerc in fifth. Looking at the 5 drivers who were knocked out, it had Ocon in 11th, Magnussen 12th, Zhou 13th, and then, like I said, the 2 rookies, Colapinto 14th, and Lawson in 15th. Of course, because of Colapinto's crash, there was quite a big repair job, so that took quite a while to clean up, but it did get cleaned up eventually. But it did leave to, I think Q3 got shortened by a couple minutes. My guess is that they're pretty tight it was pretty tight with the deadline for when they basically have to close the track down and reopen, the barriers and stuff to allow street traffic to be able to pass through. So Piastri set the benchmark early, a 1:33.520. Norris then beats it by a bit with a 33.237. Sainz beats both of them, so really good pace for him in the Ferrari with a 33.022. With 7 minutes left to go in the session, Verstappen goes second, and then Russell goes fastest by 0.2 of a second again, showing how strong the Mercedes were over 1 lap in today's session. Let's see. Hamilton then makes a mistake at turn 12, goes deep and locks up at turn 12, has to go down the escape road and then do a little bit of a U-turn there. So he basically wasn't able to set a lap time on that first lap, and basically had to go back to the pits for a new set of tires. Pole looks like Mercedes to lose is what I wrote, with Russell in the pits. He looked like he perhaps damaged his suspension on his flying lap at turn 5. Did hit the wall, did take some of the, banner off, I think. But they were able to check, make sure that the damage wasn't too bad, and he was able to go out for his final run. McLaren's not able to match the Mercedes pace in Sector 1. That's where they were losing a lot of their time. Sector 2 is about the same, but again, just not quite there on the Mercedes pace. Piastri, though, up to third. Leclerc goes fastest, then beaten by his teammate Sainz. Gasly goes P2, a bit of a shock in the Alpine, although that being said, he did have a very good lap in Q2 in the Alpine. So it looked like for whatever reason he was able to extract the maximum pace from the car today. Perhaps low grip conditions really suit the Alpine, it seems. Verstappen only 4th, but then Russell takes Sainz's pole away, sets pole himself with a 1:32.312. So great pole position by Russell, really capitalizing on the 1 lap pace of the Mercedes. For Hamilton, another mistake in Q3, wasn't able to set a representative lap time, so he's going to be starting from P10. Definitely a lot of wasted potential there in that qualifying session with those 2 big mistakes by Hamilton. So yeah, really unfortunate for him. Joining Russell on the front row will be Carlos Sainz, and then third, Pierre Gasly. Bit of a shock in the Alpine, but they've had some very good performances last time out, and they've generally been gradually progressing and improving as the season has gone along. 4th, Leclerc. 5th, Verstappen. 6th, Norris. 7th, Tsunoda. Really good job for him in the RB. 8th, Piastri. 9th, Hulkenberg. And 10th is Lewis Hamilton. So taking a look at your final grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix, Russell, of course, starting on pole. The only change from qualifying that we know of so far is, of course, Bottas's 5-point grid penalty. So instead of starting P19, he'll be starting P20. So not really a big deal for Bottas. Just kind of looking at the grid and adjusting predictions for tomorrow. I think the Mercedes, if the race pace is okay for them, I think they could potentially win. But I think definitely in Russell's case, a podium is definitely on the cards. For Ferrari, I think their race pace again looks pretty strong. So And this is a track where you can overtake. So if they can perhaps get ahead of Russell during the pit cycle or just overtake him on track, I think they could also be in contention for the win. For Verstappen, I'm not sure if he's going to have the pace to win, but I do think, maybe a podium is on the cards. For Gasly, I don't think he's going to be able to stay in third, but again, I'd like to be proven wrong on that, but I think, he should be aiming for, an easy best of the rest, which in this case is probably going to be about P6 or P7. Looking just further down the field for Perez, I'm not sure how far he's going to be able to recover. He should be able to get into the points, but we've said that quite a few times about him and recovery drives this year, and that really hasn't come to fruition. So again, be interesting to see how it goes. Should be a pretty exciting Grand Prix, and yeah, really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for watching. That's my review of qualifying for the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix. And I'll be back tomorrow with my review of the Grand Prix itself. Goodbye.